I unlocked the boat I'd just bought and walked straight into the smell of bacon. On my own stove, a woman in a floral robe looked me up and down like I'd wandered into her kitchen. And before I could say good morning, she said, "You're trespassing on community property." By the time the handcuffs finally clicked months later, and she screamed that this dock was her kingdom, I understood what I was really up against. Not rules or law, just fear dressed up in letterhead. This time, I didn't fold. "My name is Jake Turner, 44, carpenter by trade. The kind of guy who fixes other people's messes and goes home with sawdust in his shoes. And after a divorce and a slow season, I was sleeping in my truck some nights, telling myself it was temporary. So when Seabrook Landing Marina held an auction, I scraped what I had and won a sun-faded 58-foot trawler called Bluebird, thinking I'd rebuild her piece by piece, maybe live aboard part-time, take my dad's ashes out past the shoals like I promised." Next morning, I stepped on deck with a toolbox and a coffee, and there she was, Linda Prescott, president of the Seabrook Dockside Association. Mug in hand, entitlement in the eyes. "Cute paperwork," she said. When I showed the bill of sale. "This vessel is under the SDA as president. I decide who stays." 10 minutes later, 2 guys in reflective vests walked up like they were the Coast Guard. "Sir, per the pending ownership dispute, you can't occupy this vessel," one said, with that practiced smile. "There isn't a dispute," I told him. "Now there is," Linda said, sipping from my galley like she paid the mortgage. That night I slept in my truck at the far end of the lot, watching strangers clink glasses on my aft deck. And in the morning a bright orange sticker screamed, "Unsafe vessel. Demolition hearing." Pending across my hull. I tore it off by lunch. There were 3 more, and the letters started. Unauthorized presence, improper dock conduct, aggressive posture toward a board member unlicensed renovation attempt, $3,200 in fines in a week. And I laughed once with no humor, because when a bully pushes you that hard, you either laugh or you throw something, and I couldn't afford a broken window. The dock manager, Ben Hardy, talked to me near the ice machine, without quite facing me like the cameras had ears. "Linda runs everything." "Jake," he said, meaning the budget. "The leases, the security feeds. Her husband, Wick. Still golfs with half of county code. You make her mad, she finds you. You make her look small. She buries you." A deputy named Trent Hollis handed me a courtesy warning. By Friday, the SDA had filed a temporary occupancy affidavit. "You step aboard until it's resolved." "I gotta treat it like trespassing," he said, and over his shoulder. Linda filmed me with her phone smile. "Jake wouldn't want the board thinking you're violent again." And I kept my hands low, looked straight in her camera. "I'll be right here," I said. Patient as the tide. When you're under it from every angle, letters, side glances, Facebook posts calling you a predatory flipper, you can feel yourself getting small. You know what I mean? So I did what my dad told me when I was 14, and mad at a teacher. Don't swing at the first pitch, make them throw you something you can hit. I started documenting everything from the cab of my truck. I filmed dinner parties on my deck, Rick washing my hull with my own supplies, their son fishing off the stern, their daughter stringing fairy lights. Like my boat was a prop for a backyard wedding, and the SDA posted a righteous paragraph about protecting a long-standing marina family from an outsider. My name trended locally for all the wrong reasons. Monster go back to Raleigh, leave our docks alone, and I saved screenshots like insurance. Midnight to 2 a.m. became Bylaws hour, I read the SDA charter, 5 years of meeting minutes doc contracts that didn't quite add up, and almost missed it. The association's lease for water use and management had expired 6 months earlier and never got renewed with the state. So I emailed the Department of Coastal Resources and asked plain and simple, who has jurisdiction beyond the bulkhead at Seabrook Landing? And 2 days later, Cheryl Owens wrote back in a sentence, even I could frame, not the SDA. Navigable waters are state jurisdiction. Any claim beyond the shoreline is unenforceable. So I printed 3 copies and taped one inside my visor. My buddy Luis Ortega, OSINT bloodhound, finds anything with 3 clicks and a hunch, showed up with coffee and a grin. "You're gonna love this," he said, and pulled up an Airbnb listing. Dockside luxury on the water, hosted by LP Photos. We're Bluebird, my rails, my chairs, my ugly stripe. Description said, all proceeds support the SDA reviews. Praise the president's hospitality. Yeah, that happened, I muttered. And we tucked a pen camera behind a maintenance post, angled at my gangway, catching Linda greeting guests with brochures, Rick hauling suitcases, cash envelopes passing hands, a cheap plastic sign that read, Private Charter, SDA Staff. Only time stamps as clear as the tide chart. Ben texted me late one night. Check the east maintenance locker by slip 12 tied to your boat's old power, and inside a rusted box labeled Harper. Personal. I found Eli Harper's logs, hospice bills, and a note in ballpoint. Linda promised she'd keep Bluebird safe while I'm in care. Don't let her sell it. Plus a photocopy of a beneficiary. Change naming Linda, dated 3 weeks before the man died. And even if I'm not a lawyer, grief has a smell, and so does a forged signature. I brought it all to a maritime attorney. Ava Klein Boots. No fluff. Calls. Things what they are. HOA overreach, occupancy fraud. Likely elder financial abuse, she said, like she was measuring a board. We'll file a cease and desist and get an injunction to freeze movement of the vessel, and I told her I didn't want court. For the sake of court, I wanted my boat back. Sometimes the fastest way out is straight through, she said, and she wasn't wrong. We posted the injunction on the hull. 3 copies big as the sunrise, and at 6:00 a.m., Sharp Linda showed with a clipboard and a latte failure to comply. Adds $2.50 per day, she chirped, while Rick slipped my bow line off the cleat, and I stepped out. Gom held up the injunction. Touch that line again, and the Coast Guard will read this to you, I said, and she filmed my face like she could catch me blinking. Wrong smile. Jake, she said, I will. I told her when I'm underway. That's when the smear went mean. Prank calls to my businessman star reviews about me harassing families and threatening officials. Letters piled up until the shoebox I kept them in. Felt like a cinder block. And then the sandwich bag in my mailbox with a single bullet and a note sail away. While you still can. And Luis wanted cops, Ava called anyway. I let my hand stop shaking and slid the bullet into the shoebox with the letters, because you can't scare a man who already lost everything. You can only make him late to work. The Coast Guard Investigative Service rang a week later. Agent Marcus Delgado, with the dry voice of a man who's seen this movie. He took my files, and 2 nights after that, my pen cam caught Rick handing a black duffel to Nolan Graves, SDA treasurer, while Patricia Whitaker, the secretary, whispered at Linda's window, and Ava said the words that change a case conspiracy to conceal. Delgado called again with wind in his tone. Handwriting analysis flagged Eli's beneficiary change as traced witness lines signed by Linda SDA maintenance funds flowed to a shell called Dockside Living LLC. Money sliding offshore, and he said they were planning a joint operation with the state, and IRS needed one more thing, something public undeniable on the record. Linda scheduled a marina renewal gala to restore trust and community. String lights, white tablecloths, local news grabbing B-roll. So I put on a clean shirt and stood in the back with a folder Luis by the exit, filming Ava pretending to mingle Delgado, blending in with 2 state auditors who moved like they carried badges. Linda took the mic in that red blazer and said the line, "Bullies love neighbors. We've had rumors and lies, but Seabrook Landing is about community. No outsider will ever take that from us." And I walked forward and laid out the expired water lease with her signature, the Airbnb pages with my deck and her initials, the invoices from SDA to her own LLC, and she had defamation into the mic without looking down. So I lowered my voice and said, "Eli Harper's name," and for the first time her face twitched. "Don't," she hissed. "He was my friend," and I slid the photocopy of the traced beneficiary change and said, "You used his hospice paperwork to wedge your way onto that boat. You used this doc like an ATM. How am I doing so far?" And she forgot the mic was live. That old man owed me. I took care of him when no one else would. And that was the moment badges came out like a drumbeat. Linda Prescott. "Please remain seated." Delgado said. She backed up, knocked the mic. Stand grabbed the podium like it could save her. "You can't arrest me here. This is my marina," she spat. "Ma'am, not anymore," he said. Rick tried for the service door. 2 agents turned him around. Nolan and Patricia went the color of printer paper, and Linda locked eyes on me and said, "You'll regret this, Jake," as the cuffs clicked. And I didn't say a word, because the sound of metal on wrist said everything. People ask if that was the end, and I wish. But the next morning, the board's lawyer filed a civil suit against me for defamation and emotional distress to the community, because that's how bullies fight. When the big stick breaks, they drown you in paper and hope you get tired. The news ran 2 versions: whistleblower hero versus controversial figure who divided a beloved marina. And I stepped on Bluebird that night and put my palm on the rail and said quietly, "Welcome home," because I wasn't in the mood for a victory lap as peace. Here's your twist if you like debates. The HOA dissolved the state, sent a neutral manager. Fees are posted instead of whispered. The dock feels lighter. But a neighbor told me last week the chaos is worse without Linda. "At least she ran a tight ship," she said. And I didn't argue. I just watched Bluebird's reflection tremble and thought how easy it is to confuse control with safety, how tidy can hide rot, and maybe communities aren't meant to be that neat. So tell me where you land. Did I do the right thing, dragging it all into the lights? Or did I become the loudest voice, and that's its own kind of wrong? You know what I mean, hit like, if you think receipts beat rumor. Subscribe if you want more stories where the little guy waits documents, then lands the swing that counts, and drop your city and time below, plus your worst HOA moment, or the time a Linda in your town tried to turn rules into a crown. Was justice served here, or just rearranged?